Welcome to the Exodus Companies podcast. My name is Jared. I am the CEO and founder of the Exodus Companies. When we're talking motivation, what does that mean to you? Let me throw one other curveball to you. What is motivation versus discipline? How are they different, and is one better than the other? I've got a story to tell you, and it starts back in 2015. But in order to do that, I want to fast forward a little bit further into 2017. See, in 2017, I started reading books a lot, and many of those books were self-help books that were very much based on motivation. And I don't think that that was a bad thing at the time, because honestly, what it did is give me some clarity of where I'm headed, who I am, and what I want to accomplish. But I've got a little bit of a switch going on here, because at some point, the motivation kind of wears off. And what motivation is an emotional response, in my opinion. And I want to give a little bit of credit to one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to fairly frequently, the Real AF podcast. And Andy recently talked about this motivation versus discipline. And when I listened to his episode, it really struck me that that was my story. That in 2017, I had a lot of motivation, but I didn't have a lot of discipline. And motivation without discipline eventually burns out. And when we're looking at how we can succeed, and we're looking at how we can become better as people and ultimately affect our culture around us, I believe that you can't just have motivation, you also have to have discipline. So what does that look like? Well, what I can share with you is my business journey thus far. And one thing that I do want to point out and make very clear is I'm not ever going to profess to be a business expert. I'm simply sharing some of my own personal experiences through building my business. Now, I do have a successful business. It is a rapidly growing business, but that doesn't mean that I know everything. And I'm on an absolutely constant learning curve with this entire build out of everything that I've done up to this point. But 2015 was when we officially launched my first business. And throughout that period, I didn't really know what it meant to be disciplined. And when I look at myself as a leader, I realize how much discipline is actually needed in order to see some success. So what does discipline look like in the world of a business leader, or anything for that matter? One of the things that stands out to me is the term called servant leader. And what a servant leader does is puts other people first. A servant leader will take their own needs and they'll understand them. I mean, we can't forget the things that we need. We can't forget to take care of ourselves, but sometimes we're going to take those things and put them on the back burner so that we can focus on investing in other people first. Maybe you don't own a business and you're kind of wondering, what does it mean to be a servant leader in my own world? Well, I would argue that, let's just say you're a husband. You have a wife and kids at home. To be a servant leader would mean that you're putting their needs above your own. Now, again, I'm not saying to ignore your own health and your own investments in yourself, but you might sacrifice the short term in order to gain some long-term benefits. In your job, you might be a servant leader because you might invest in the other people around you. And for my own business journey, one of the things that I remember clearly throughout the beginning was not paying myself for many years within the business. And that was a journey that we went on. And I think that every small business owner, if they are truly a small business owner, if they've started from zero, they've gone through that phase where all you've done is pour into the business and you haven't been able to take anything out of the business. And I remember this transitional phase throughout the 2018, 2019 years when we started hiring our first employees, where I wasn't making any money from my business, but I was paying other people to be on our team. Talk about a crazy shift when you set out to be bigger than average, when you want to have a huge impact in your world around you, and you're not even paying yourself from the business that you're pouring your heart into. Now, that's not me complaining, and I don't want this to come across like I'm regretting any of that, because I do pay myself through my business now, and we have a rapidly growing team, and we've got a successful business here. But it was a phase that I had to go through so I could learn how to be a servant leader, and that is discipline, not motivation. If I was solely motivated to build a business, there's no way I would ever go through what I went through in order to get to this point, because my motivation would have worn out long ago. because that motivation only gives you that short burst of energy, whereas discipline is what is going to tell you every single day to wake up and do the hard things, because you know at some point those hard things are going to get easier. Now, as they get easier, there's other hard things that get thrown at you, and you have to learn to pivot. You need to learn to maneuver. You need to learn how to adapt. Those hard things are never going to go away, but some of the hard things that you see now become very easy over time. That's discipline. Discipline is saying that you're never going to say, I'm done. I quit. I just can't do it any longer. Discipline forces you to act, whereas motivation makes you feel good. Now, I don't want to say that all motivation is bad. And to be honest, when I referenced some of the books I was reading in 2017, that motivation helped lead me into better discipline. So I do think that they go hand in hand, but I think what our culture is telling us is you need to feel motivated. And the reason they say that is because motivation feels really, really good. Motivation is when I go to a conference and I listen to a speaker who is a multimillionaire who owns 10 businesses, who has cool cars and does all this neat stuff that everybody thinks is the American dream that we all hope and aspire that we could be someday. You listen to his speech and you walk away pumped up. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think watching examples of who we want to become is a good thing, but we have to be careful. Motivation alone is not enough to drive you to success, and motivation alone is not enough to just change our culture. If we want to see a cultural radical shift for the better, we can't just be motivated to do it. I mean, that's a great thing to start with. We could say that I would love to see our culture expand. I would love to see our culture healthy. I would love to see people around us thriving. But at the end of the day, you need some discipline. If you don't have the discipline and the ability to just weather storms, you won't be able to achieve any of that. You're going to find that burnout. Now, again, the discipline comes with time. Discipline is not some skill that people just have. I think a lot of people look at people that have some success and they say, well, they're pretty gifted. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a gift at all. I think that the difference between someone who's disciplined and sees success and someone who's not is the one who's disciplined is willing to go through some really sucky situations. They're really willing to get totally shafted because they understand that at the other side of that, down the road, that delayed gratification, it is coming. A change will come over time. Now, that's not a promise that if you wake up at 5 o'clock a.m. every day, just for the sake of doing that all of a sudden miracles around you are going to happen. I think there's also an aspect of having purpose behind that discipline. So what are you disciplined about? Why are you choosing to be disciplined? Those are equally important to being disciplined in general. If you look around you, look at the people that you interact with. Is there discipline in their lives? And then analyze yourself. And I'm not telling you to just go judge people for where they're at, because we don't know the circumstances of everybody. But I think in general, we would all agree that our culture makes a lot of excuses. We don't like doing the hard thing because we want to be comfortable. We've been told that it's okay to just be mediocre. It's okay to do the same thing day in, day out, make no changes, just kind of go with the wind. We float around and just hope that tomorrow we land on something that feels good. There's a lot of intention that goes along with this skill set that is called discipline. And guys, as I've moved forward with my personal journey, I have seen that when I am disciplined, even when it's hard, even when it sucks, there are good things that come out of it. And it might take me 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. But I can promise you that every day I'm going to show up. Every day we as a team, my entire team is going to throw everything they have at this cultural movement. And over time, we will see that trajectory come into fruition. The last thing I want to leave you with is being disciplined is not necessarily a guarantee for fast results. I think that our culture in general, the ones that accept discipline, might kind of lead us down the path of believing that, oh, as soon as you are disciplined, you'll see those results. If I was in 2017 and I looked at that year as it was happening, which obviously I did because I was there, the changes that I experienced in 2017 weren't very obvious to me. When I look back from this point in my life, I see what those trials have brought. I see the fact that what felt like no movement was actually a substantial amount of movement. And some of the hardest times that I had to navigate, that I had to exercise discipline through, have turned me into a different person. They have refined me as a man. They have helped me become a better version of myself. So if I want to leave you guys with anything tonight, what I want to leave you with is motivation is fine. It is great to find things that motivate you. It's awesome to listen to people that are ahead of you and to absorb some of the energy that they're putting out so that it forces us into action. But as we take that action, it is extremely important that we operate with discipline. By operating with discipline coupled with motivation, we can effect cultural change around us if we are living ethically and putting those values out to the people we see every single day. If you guys liked what you saw in this episode, please consider sharing it with your friends and family members, and also consider leaving a rating and review on the hosting platform for which you are listening to this podcast. If you want to go one step further and show us even more support, consider going over to exoduscompanies.com. On that homepage, you're going to see all the brands that we own. You can check out the links, all the other information that we have there. And if you want to represent the values that we speak of every single episode on this podcast, you can rock our apparel. Check it all out on exoduscompanies.com. I have on right now the Destined to Move hoodie. It shows my diesel swapped Jeep Cherokee. If you're into that kind of stuff, this is a fantastic hoodie just to show people that you are part of this movement. I also have a couple other t-shirts over here that I figured I would show you guys who are watching on YouTube. We have our logo lockup tee over here. This is the Q4 drop of 2022, and it has many of our statements that we believe to be true. We've got revival, truth, vision, purpose, and underneath it says Exodus from culture to build community. It's a great way to share our values with people as you interact around you every single day. And then I have one of the t-shirts over here, which is again the Destined to Move t-shirt. This is one of my personal favorites because it is obviously my Jeep, but it also signifies physical movement and exploration of people. So guys, there's a lot more apparel over on our website, exoduscompanies.com. It is a fantastic way for you to show some support for us, but also speak truth into culture.